The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Today, we are going to jump into a topic that will hit home with a lot of MSPs, and we're going to talk about something that doesn't get enough attention, and that is cash flow. You've probably heard me say before, you are not a bank. I'll repeat it again. You are not a bank. But the truth is, many MSPs do act like one. We're constantly in those situations where we're fronting cash for projects, we're waiting on invoices to clear and juggling lines of credit to make payroll. It is stressful, it's risky, and it eats into your profitability. And that's why I'm excited to have Adam Crandall with Benji Pays here. And let's go ahead and bring in Adam. There we go. How you doing today, Adam?
Good, Dan. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and it's good to have you here. We've got a great topic that we want to cover, and we're going to talk about how MSPs can take control of invoicing and cash flow once and for all. And we're going to get into some payment automation, customer experience, and why improving cash flow is one of the smartest business decisions that you can make. And with that being said, I'm glad that you're here. And before we kick things off, if maybe you can give our audience just a little background about yourself there at Benji Pays.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the CEO and founder of Benji Pays. I've been in the IT world for a very long time. Feels like I don't like to think about it sometimes, but I actually,
right?
Yeah. I started my career in IT almost 30 years ago or 27 years ago. Spent a couple years in a MSP as a independent operator, franchisee, and then was in consulting for many years and software development. And then I took a small break in 2014. It's a little burnt out. I somehow ended up in HR, and I needed a change. So a buddy of mine who worked with me, we went and opened a brewery. And we actually spent 7 years running that, and then one other brewery. And then that's actually Benji Pays was kind of born there, and got me back into things. So back in tech, back writing code, doing what I love doing.
That's awesome. Was that break, a good thing for you, just to kind of get your head clear of IT, and then you just knew that you had to get back because that's where your passion was?
Yeah, it was definitely a good break. For a lot of reasons. Starting something, brewery is a somewhat complicated business to start. You need a bunch of capital, a bunch of equipment. You need to figure out how all that works. And we built it. Like, we dug the holes, we designed everything, and
nice.
So we learned a lot. And then you're learning how, I'd had my own businesses in the past, but this was different. Right now, we've got 30 employees and hundreds and hundreds of customers, and logistics of getting beer all over the city and the province. And yeah, it's good times.
That's cool. Little note for you. I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I don't know if we're still considered the beer city of America, but I know we held that title for quite some time. We've got a lot of great breweries here. So,
absolutely.
That's today's trivia fact. So, I'd love to get started with the big picture and talk a little bit about MSPs and the struggle of cash flow management. We see it day in, day out. It doesn't matter if you're a small MSP or if you're a large MSP, whether you're green or you're mature, we see a lot of these pitfalls. A lot of the struggle comes to that delayed billing, manual reconciliation, just that whole follow-up process with clients. And, let's face it, at the end of the day, cash is king. So, what is it from your perspective that you see how MSPs struggle with that cash flow management?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's, there's a few different reasons, and it kind of depends on what stage someone's in their kind of MSP journey.
Yeah,
And I should say this isn't unique to MSPs, but we can, like, all businesses have this for similar reasons. And so I kind of
sure.
characterize yeah, I kind of characterize it into a couple things. So early on, when you first start your MSP, and maybe for a long time after that, depending on your mindset, you might be afraid to ask your customers to pay you in the way that you need to be paid
Right.
to be successful, right? We think if we are going to dictate terms or say you have to use auto payments or whatever, that customers will leave us, and we don't want that when we only have a few customers in the beginning. And I totally get that. It's a real concern, right? Especially when you're small, and that might work for a while, especially if you don't have a huge staff or a lot of expenses yet. Um, but then once you become a going concern, and you've got maybe other staff and payroll and maybe rent and all of those things, then it becomes just more of habit, I think. Um, and this is the way we do it. And we're so busy that we don't have time to think about how we might change this process, because it is a change management project to make a big change to how the money comes into your business. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
and and I think too. I'll just jump in. Just one additional thought. Is I think about the ideal client profile, where when we take a look at as let's say as we're starting an MSP, we want to go after whoever wants to spend money with us, right? And because we want it's like revenue. All right, we got some revenue coming in. But then if they're not the ideal fit, especially from a cash flow perspective, it doesn't do us any good, and it becomes a burden on the organization, and it can have an impact on day-to-day operations. I mean, you mentioned having a rent or payroll. I mean, there are
mhm.
other things that it can impact our regular operations and our ability to service our clients, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And cash in general is the number one reason that businesses go under. And I've seen it, and it's sad, right? Like, we got friends, family, everyone knows somebody who's put their blood, sweat, and tears into everything into their business, only to see
Yeah.
it fail because they can't get paid. You can be profitable. A lot of people don't understand this. Like, you can be profitable without being and still cash flow negative. It's like,
Right.
because you've got a
Right.
bunch of money. We say it all the time, like you said at the intro, is like, don't be a bank. The problem is a lot of MSPs do operate like a bank. They don't realize it, but when you're effectively extending credit to your customers by, if you start out with net 30, and then they stretch that to 60 or 90, you're a bank. And unfortunately, we're the worst type of bank when we're in that situation, because we're completely unprofitable. We don't charge any interest, and we
Right.
keep providing services. So, we don't want to do that. You want to try to find ways to take the human nature out of that. Like I always say, like, if is the example of, like, maybe John's late this month paying, you're like, well, John's a good guy. He probably just busy. Maybe he's on vacation. So you let it go a week.
Yeah.
And then a week comes and you're like, well, I'll give him a few more days. Like, you don't even email. And this is human nature part of it. Whereas a computer
Right.
will just send that reminder out or just process that payment. And
Yeah.
so, like, automating everything that's in that kind of happy green light path is really good. So you can focus on those things that are maybe not going right.
So it takes the emotion out of it, which is I think is important, because we all as people, you want to give somebody a break, but if we can't cover our payroll, or if we can't pay our rent, then that's a huge problem. And I think it's so important too for MSPs to understand that we all want to be we want operational maturity, right? And sometimes I think we feel that maturity comes with time, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that way. You can start an MSP day one being operationally mature, right? You can
Yeah.
have those things in place. It's just a matter of making that decision and understanding that all other mature businesses will do the same thing, and
Hmm.
those that don't do it will struggle, and they may not last. And you want to be sustainable. So, um,
Absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know, Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about automating that chaos. And
Mhm.
many MSPs rely on manual invoicing, spreadsheets, the late follow-ups. How can automation, like a payment link, a portal, reconciliation, change that overall process?
Yeah, it's a great question, and obviously, the payment part is just part of that puzzle, right? So MSPs have so many great tools available to them in PSAs that can automate the creation, like the billing process, the creation of those invoices.
Yeah,
You can, early on, if you don't have a PSA, you can automate invoice creation for recurring invoices in your accounting system, like QuickBooks Online or Zero, and really reduce that part of the admin. And then having integrated payment links or automated payments, it just makes it easier. Like you don't want getting paid or your customer paying you to be frictional, right? Like you want that to
yeah,
have as low friction as possible. So if they can click a link and then in one or two clicks pay your invoice, get the receipt, or if they can log into a portal and see their invoices, pay any one or all of the overdue ones at once, see their past transactions, all of that kind of stuff is really going to help you get paid faster, but also just reduce the amount of like admin you have to do, and also something that people don't think about, which is the communication with your customers around those admin related activities, right? What is the charge of my credit card statement, all that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, so the obvious ones are like payment links, customer portal. Maybe slightly less obvious is like automated reminders or dunning. So like something to go chase your overdue invoices,
Yeah.
remind your customers, sending out statements, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And, can you talk a little bit about, that integration into, any kind of PSA and how that
Mhm.
process makes it more seamless for the MSP?
Yeah, for sure. Like whatever solution you end up with, you want to make sure those. If you're automating invoice generation or billing in your PSA, you want that stuff to end up in your accounting system automatically, and for it to be accurate. Like the numbers should match in both systems. Most of the
Yeah.
PSAs out there these days do a really good job of that. And then from there, you want to make sure like the same data is connected and integrated with however you're doing payments. So that could be a combination of ways that gets done in the industry, but typically you're going to want that system to be aware and connected to your accounting system natively, and you're going to want it to also be connected to your PSA, so that it can get things like your invoice PDFs and things like that you want to go out to your customers.
Yeah. So, what I think our audience would love to hear is, what is some of the feedback that you hear from MSPs? And because, once you've helped them to automate that, let's say that maybe the payment workflows,
Mhm.
um, it's got to be a night and day difference for them. And, and it must be something that, once they go through the process, that light bulb of, you know, aha, and also, why didn't I do this sooner? Probably jumps out, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, we get it, right? Especially when you're still one or two people, and you just feel like there's no time. That why didn't I do it sooner? We know why. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like biting the bullet. But we've got so many great stories from partners on this. We've had one of our partners, Tim. He was in the kind of about a 15-day DSO. So DSO stands for days sales outstanding, and it's a standard accounting measurement KPI or measurement for measuring how long it takes you to turn an invoice into cash. 15 days is actually not bad in itself, but he wanted to get that down. And through Benji Pays, he was able to like automate all that stuff and get it down to about 7-8 days. And he
Okay.
also made some process changes that helped with that too. It was like the software helped, but they helped support the new process. And so a couple of easy things he did: all his recurring invoices, instead of generating and sending them on the first of the month, the system knows how much they're going to be. So he generates and sends them 2 weeks early. That one change, he was actually getting paid in advance sometimes. The customers would just click the link and pay like a week early. So now he's turned cash flow issues into positive cash flow. He's actually getting paid. So he's got negative AR in some cases. So things like that, just little changes like that can help a lot, right? Or we had another partner recently that they're much larger and they hadn't really thought they had a problem because, they're going well and there's cash in the bank, but implementing automation around payments, they actually went from being like, yeah, we're fine, to, wow, like we actually can invest in our business now. Like, should we think about buying a building or an office, or, hiring some more folks, or spending money on, like, it's a game changer for their business, and it's really going to allow them to grow. Right.
Yeah. And, that stress is immense. I mean, let's face it, as entrepreneurs, whether you're an actual business owner, you're a leader in the organization, the stress of making sure that you make payroll is one example, is immense, right? Because you want to take care of the people that are taking care of you and taking care of your clients. And, just that stress of, okay, are we going to be okay? We're waiting on this client or that client, so, being able to, reduce that time, especially sending those invoices out 2 weeks ahead of time, I think is great. And so I love hearing those type of stories and how it's helping MSPs.
Yeah. I mean, there's that stress that as a business owner you take on, right? We've all kind of been there, and it's not the best part of running a business.
Yeah.
But there's also the stress of getting the work done. So the other thing we hear very often, especially folks who are maybe like, a couple of years in, is they're doing all of this work on a Friday night or Saturday morning or whatever it is, instead of spending time with their friends or family or doing their hobbies, and it just grows. And you just like, I guess that's what I do Saturdays now. And so if you can eliminate that, you can get your time back. And what you do with that is up to you, either some more downtime or more time selling. I remember we were talking to one partner, checking in, how's it going? And he's like, it's great. It's changed my life. It's like, what do you like? How so? He's like, well, at the end of the day, I used to do all the billing. I used to spend an hour and a half. Now I just go for a walk.
Oh, I love it.
And so like, quality of life up, and for a very small cost. Right. So.
Yeah. And, and we do know we can't buy time, because if we could, we'd be bottling it and selling it, but we can get time back. Right.
Absolutely.
So that's great. And, I'd like to talk about the financial side for a second.
Sure.
Like, how do you get those pricing models and payment processing fees? Or I should say, really, how do those impact profitability? So you got your pricing models, your payment processing fees. How is that impacting profitability, and what should MSPs be looking for in a pricing model?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things to pick apart there. So one, whether you're automating or whatever you're doing, if you're getting paid, there's probably some sort of cost to it. Even if it's cash, like generally banks will charge you to put cash in the bank when you're a business. So the banks are always going to get their money. So obviously the most common way to get paid is by credit card. Most people have one. It's easy. It's fast. You can get as a business, we get our money fast. There is a cost to that. And you can't really get away from that. I mean, you can maybe shave off, a few basis points here or there, but generally the cost is the cost, especially when it's B2B. Those credit cards that our customers hold and we all hold that have all the points and all that, they have a higher cost associated with them. Right. And so that's part of it. And so what you can look at is you can look at a couple things, right? So one, let's say you're paying 3% on credit cards, like that is coming on, like that's out of your pocket as an owner or as a business. Like I said, you can't eliminate it, but you might be able to reduce how many of the dollars flowing through your business are subject to it. Or you may be able to pass those fees along to your customer, or both. And so you want to look at things like ACH or bank payments. Because then you can get that cost down to next to nothing, depending on the platform. Right. And you can do that in combination with credit card surcharging or where you can basically give your customers the option when they go to pay. Do you want to, use a credit card? I do. Okay, well, it's 3% or whatever it is that we're going to add on to your transaction, and that covers your fees. Or they can pay by bank, and in our case, that's $1. And so that's obviously a huge savings to the business. The thing to look out for when you're looking at the different platforms out there is something Benji Pays believes. I believe, and what's the reason Benji Pays believes is like, as a business owner, there's enough folks in my pocket trying to get a percentage of my P&L before my employees and I do. And so we have a very different billing model. And it could be because I come from tech. Like, I'm not a banker. No one that works at Benji Pays is a banker or has ever really worked in banking. We're technical folks who like solving real problems for people and making your lives better through software, right? And so we don't like I said, you can't get away from credit card fees. The bank's going to take that, but you can look at things like ACH. Like, are they charging you a percentage on your ACH fees? Some platforms do. We don't. Or even on your SaaS, like the software portion of your fees. Like, so we have a monthly fee that customers pay for our software, as do most platforms. Yeah. Some platforms in our industry will take a percentage on top of that, of the revenue flowing through in payments. We do not. I believe that 100% that is not okay. Like, I don't want to participate in your P&L before you do, right? Some will base it on how many dollars you're processing. So like maybe up to $50,000 a month, you pay one price, but as you go over that, your price goes up per month, from the base plan to some more premium plan. We don't do that. We strongly believe the value of our service is not in how much money you're moving. It's how many times you're moving it. Right? Like, there's a value of your time to get paid on an invoice. And it doesn't really matter how big that invoice is. The value to you is the same. And so that's how we do our pricing. It's based on how many transactions or invoices go through. And most MSPs on our platform are just paying, we've created the plans so that they kind of cover off the average MSP, and they just pay our base monthly fee, plus the credit card transaction fees. Yeah.
That's great. And it's interesting, when you talk about, it doesn't matter what the volume of that is, because, it's not like a large transaction is going to consume more bandwidth sending you that money, right?
Exactly.
So it's like, there's not additional cost from that perspective. So, but a lot of great points, especially the ACH. And I think that's a great thing to consider. Or, the surcharge, just, those two combined, I think are things to take into consideration, because, I think a lot of times we underestimate the true cost of payments, and, there truly is a cost. And if there's ways that we can, reduce and eliminate that, or get close to eliminating as possible, I think those are things that we should consider. So, I know, as we've talked about here, Benji Pays isn't just another, AR automation tool. There's, what's the core philosophy behind the company, and how are you changing the game for MSPs? I know you did talk a little bit about from a pricing perspective, but, what are some other things you guys are doing that, MSPs will stand out to MSPs?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So like I've kind of already mentioned a couple of things, like our philosophy and like where we come from. Like myself and my co-founder Avery, we come from the MSP world. We're technical folks. He was in infrastructure for years. I was software development. It's why I get up and get out of bed every day, is to make the product better and solve real problems. And so we spend a lot of time on the details of, like, if we're building a feature, for instance, when we built Invoice Rover, which is our automated reminder and chasing feature. If you compare all the platforms out there available to MSPs, it looks, on the surface, like all the features are available, right? Everyone's got reminders. But if you dig into the details of like how configurable they are, how they work, you see very clearly when you put us up against those other platforms that we've spent a lot of time thinking about what MSPs might need and what different MSPs might need to make that feature work for them. And so things like unlimited number of rules, unlimited number of like being able to include, exclude folks, or CC, BCC, like there's all these things that MSPs want. So a big part of what we're doing that's different is just approaching this financial problem from the technology first standpoint. Our pricing is a big one. I mentioned that. Probably don't need to go into that more. But another one is just the way we approach and support, and we keep everything in house. Our folks are all, pretty knowledgeable on the finance side, and again come from technology. So these things like just make us think about things differently. Than if we had come at this from a banker's viewpoint.
Yeah, and I will say, as I interview, so many different vendors from around the world, the ones that really stand out to me, but also most especially to the MSPs, are the ones that have come from the MSP industry themselves. And you get it. At the end of the day, you've been there, you've done that. The struggles, or areas that are important for MSPs. So huge value from that perspective.
We have. Well, I was going to say, there's one other thing that really sets us apart and kind of like shows like how committed we are to the other things they're saying, which is when you go to process, if you want to process credit cards and payments, you need something called a merchant account. And so Benji Pays, we've actually just launched our own Benji Payments merchant account. So you can we have a full turnkey solution for that, which lots of MSPs want. They want to just sign up, fill out an application, deal with us. It's great. Like we want to be the ones that control that full end-to-end support wherever possible. However, some folks, we'll actually give you a choice where our competitors won't do that. If you have a good relationship with your bank, you already have a merchant account with, let's say, US Bank and Elavon, we've got a connector for that. So we can actually connect to pretty much any merchant account in North America. And so you have a choice. There's always trade-offs. Like sometimes some features aren't available on one or the other, but in general, everything is available. But it's just something that we feel the right thing to do. And it just makes sure businesses and MSPs know they have a choice when they come here and come work with us on how they want their money to flow.
That's great. And, so before we wrap up, so it sounds like that's something new that you've added.
Yeah, it's actually just in private beta right now.
Okay.
But we're super excited about it. It provides full end-to-end from the point of applying for your account. You're in Benji Pays. It's our team that is the ones you will always talk to about everything to do with your payments, your fees, your statements. And it actually, the platform we've integrated with our partners, it allows us to provide a really, really streamlined reconciliation process where we've already recorded all your fees and all your bank deposits and everything, something that's not always possible when we're using a third-party processor. And so we're super excited about it. We're actually we started out like Benji Pays, we dog food everything. Benji Pays uses Benji Pays to get paid, right? So I don't know that all the I know some of our competitors, they use other platforms, which is always surprising. But so we were the first ones to roll it out. We've been dog fooding it for the last few weeks, and it's great. It's like saving us a ton of time already. So we're really looking forward to see how it impacts our customers and partners.
So you eat your own dog food. I had to throw that in there.
Yeah, totally.
It's very rare that you actually, you use that expression and it really hits home, right? Like with you guys. So that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah, it was one of those things that there was an easier way for us to let our own funds flow through the platform. But I was like, no, we want to be set up exactly like one of our partners so that we can see how it's working and use the tools in the same way. So when we're frustrated, the other folks might be frustrated. We could fix that in advance. Just make things better. So
that's cool. And I'm a firm believer in, you can't sell what you don't use, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, absolutely. And So as we wrap up, is there anything else new coming up with Benji Pays, or is there any parting words that you'd love to share to the MSP world?
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be for us like new things in our PSA integrations, whatnot. Like we already have what industry leading PSA integrations with Halo and ConnectWise and whatnot. We have a version 2 of our ConnectWise integration coming up, which provides a bit more automation around getting contacts and some other things, and kind of lays a foundation for that. We're starting to work on other accounting systems, so like a Dynamics Business Central integration that hopefully should launch early next year. And then we just have feedback.benjipays.com. There's a long list of things that folks have requested, and we're making our way through that based on what people are asking for. So yeah, super excited. We never stop. All our devs are in house as well, so like they're in the next room here. We just they're working away as hard as they can.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. And, Adam, this has been a great conversation, a very important conversation, because when MSPs fix their cash flow, everything else in the business starts to click.
Absolutely.
You can scale faster, you can plan better. And most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, is you can stop stressing over those receivables. And for any of our audience that wants to learn more, of course, I'm going to go ahead and throw your URL down there, benjipays.com. You can reach out to you guys there and learn more. And so, Adam, I want to thank you for your time today. And for all of our audience, greatly thank you for being here, listening to us. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you, Adam.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.